I'm David Johnson from Transform Ed Consulting, and I am honored today to have my dear friend and colleague, Cassandra Williams, who is the brains behind Educational Innovation 360 Degrees. Cassandra, how are you today?
I am wonderful. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good too. And for our audience, you can see both the plugs for Transform Ed Consulting and for Educational Innovation 360 Degrees. And those are all the services we offer. A lot of services. You can find us on LinkedIn, find us on the internet, or you'll find our email addresses at the end of this conversation. So it's my pleasure again to have my dear friend and colleague Cassandra here, and I'll read her bio in brief. Cassandra Williams is the founder and CEO of Educational Innovation 360 Degrees, a pioneering company dedicated to transforming education from K 12 through higher education. With over 20 years' experience in educational leadership, Cassandra has a deep commitment to teacher retention, inclusive learning environments, and professional development for educators. Her expertise spans both K 12 and university settings, where she supports educators, instructional coaches, and school leaders through innovative research practices. Cassandra's work has positioned Educational Innovation 360 Degrees as a trusted partner for schools seeking impactful strategies to boost student engagement and improve teaching outcomes. Very, very impressive, Cassandra. That's why we're buddies.
Right?
That's why.
Exactly.
But there's some things in here that you might have missed. Tell us your background. How did you get to be so broad in your knowledge about education?
Well, you've been in education for so long, you kind of eat, sleep, and breathe it. I think the research says if you've been studying something for like I forgot, is it 10 years, then that makes you an expert in it. So, like as a teacher, a coach, a leader, I opened a couple of schools. I was at the college level, so it's so many things you can get into at the educational level. Why not do as much as you can, right, to learn and keep growing?
I think you opened some innovative schools or some schools that were using non-traditional practices or non-traditional approaches. Could you speak more about that?
So there were a couple of schools that I did a lot of research in. One of the schools that we were talking about, how do we use asynchronous learning? Now, this was about 5 years ago. This is some time, but it's like, how do we use asynchronous learning to support individual student growth? There was one school where we were taking faculty research and bringing in like student alumni to say, hey, I was where you were, and having speeches and giving back to students. We were also able to really think about what does it look like for a college trajectory. And so we would write in the curriculum as a kindergarten, what experiences do we want them to have with faculty? What experiences do we want them to have with other students? What type of mentorship programs do we need to implement? So we were able to pilot a lot of mini programs to best support student growth and learning.
Wow, I'm impressed. And you notice I'm wearing my IU shirt today.
Yes, I do.
You and I have the IU connection.
We
You
do.
attended IU East and you taught at
Yes.
IUPUI,
Yes.
Indiana University, Purdue University, and Indianapolis. Tell us about IU East. That's Richmond, Indiana, isn't it?
Yeah. So with IU East, it was an online program that they offered to faculty, which was really interesting because it was like, how do we have best practices with online teaching? And that was one of those things that it was pretty much coming to fruition, like, hey, COVID hit. And so they're like, oh my God, we need to provide our faculty with much resources as we can with, online learning and best practices. And what does the research say? What have people been doing for some time? And so that's where I got my kind of online certificate for best practices with online learning. So I really enjoyed that. We were able to do it kind of a hybrid model. So that's my experience with IU East.
Mhm.
So I've never been on the campus, but I'm pretty sure it's a beautiful site.
And you taught at IUPUI. Which
Yes.
courses did you teach?
So, introduction to African American studies, courses in African American studies, as well as in the College of Education, reading methods. And so there's a wide variety of background experience and just opportunities for me to not only dive in and study a subject and a concept, but really see what does this look like for new teachers coming into the field and be able to tie Africana studies to the College of Education for
Mhm.
teachers to give them a more diverse approach to learning.
Mhm. And you mentioned that you have the online teaching certification, but you do a lot of other things on online. You do a lot of things online. You offer courses online. What were those courses,
Yes.
and what are those courses, and where can people find them?
Okay, so definitely. So what we tend to do is we have a coaching program and we provide asynchronous learning. So that looks like we support the teacher. The teacher records our classroom. We give timestamps on the video, and then we provide a 5 to 6 minute video on what we want to see in the next video. And then the teacher kind of looks at the video and says, oh, "Okay, I think I can do this. I see how you broke it down. How the teacher needs to be moving, mobile. How you point it and use arrows." And then the teacher re-records herself and we say, hey, you got that skill, and the teacher gets professional growth points. So it's many modules that help the teacher grow along the way.
And how did you manage to become, or how did you become such an expert on pedagogy and methodology?
Well, I mean, I kind of feel like it's all about studying, reading, back and research, and just trying and learning new things. I mean, I love education because you can kind of fail forward and keep trying things. And I tried this, it's so interesting. I tried this concept of like coaching in the metaverse, but the fact that you can just your imagination can kind of take you anywhere you want to go and you can just make it happen. So I love that about education.
Well, it's great speaking about you, but we have a topic today: changing the face of professional development. And there are 6 bullets that go along with it. Focus on practical classroom ready skills, make it continuous and reflective, incorporate personalized learning paths, empower teacher leaders and coaches, integrate technology and AI effectively, focus on teacher retention through engagement and well being. Where would you like to start?
Right, we can just the first one, focus on practical classroom ready skills. uh,
Okay, jump right in, my friend.
Right. I think we're at a point right now where tech addiction is happening, and we understand that our students need more practical, hands-on experiences. And so we are really working hard to create engagement and make sure our classes have little pieces of engagement throughout the lesson, and it's tied to real world experiences. And so not only are we looking through our lessons to ensure that the students know that they can use these practices in everyday life, but it's direct and it's relevant to the world that they live in.
Direct and relevant. What does that mean?
Right. So, really thinking, it's very hard to think like, what does mastery look like for this standard? But then what does the standard look like in practice in the world? Whether it be fractions, decimals, or how do we see it come up in society? And having the teacher just thinking about practical applications she can bring in the classroom to make it that much funner for students to access the content.
Well, how is someone, a teacher or anyone, um, able to, or what should that person do to find things that would be relevant and real life, let's say, for students?
So it could be various ways, but it could be bringing in somebody from that content of expertise in the classroom, whether you be Zoom, it could be just doing research on a concept and maybe thinking about video that's out there that relates. So it could be so many different things that really just engage students, but there's some type of connection to a real world. So I know the pendulum is swinging back and forth and kind of thinking about what does that resource look like, and it could be so many things.
Now, you mentioned classroom ready skills. What's a classroom ready skill?
So we are really struggling in our schools right now to not only teach grade level content, but ensuring the teachers believe that our students can. access the content and the curriculum, but grade level standards. And we want to make sure that our teachers are teaching grade level standards, and we scaffold and make sure our students can meet the needs of the standards. And so when I think classroom ready, I think do our teachers believe that our kids can? Are the teachers setting the standard and say, hey, this is where our expectations are, and supporting them and making sure they pass the bar, pass the expectation and their goals?
Now, you used the word scaffolding.
Yeah.
So, what would be an example of scaffolding upon classroom ready skills?
Little pieces. So, I guess let me think of an example. So, we know reading comprehension is big. And so, one thing we want to do is, what does even reading comprehension look like? What does it look like in a smaller text? Maybe the lexile is same. The lexile is for the grade level. In a smaller text, we can kind of dive into it and pick it apart. What does it mean? What are the visual images? What are the vocabulary? What are all these pieces? What connection can we tie text to text, text to self, text to the world? And then really take that and then bump up the rigor, maybe make the paragraph bigger, more text, really identify in a harder text. Now, can we use vocabulary? Can we pull out these things? And me as a teacher modeling it while the students are, modeling it as well, and then having the students do it on their own.
Mm-hmm. That sounds good. Sounds encouraging. Well, where would you like to go from here? We have some very interesting topics here. Where would you like to go?
So I think the next one is making it relevant. Or was it continuous and reflective?
Make it continuous and reflective.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I see that we struggle with in some of our schools is, how do we ensure that the professional development that we provide for our teachers is modeling the behavior that we want to see our teachers do?
Oh.
And so with that, we have to have reflection periods, and identify, and even the presenter, many times when I present, I do a think aloud. How did that go? How could that have been better? And my think alouds is the model of the behavior I want the teachers to do, kind of during a lesson, before, during, after. And then after the lesson, I'll sit and I'll say, hey, this went really well. This, I could have did this, or I could have got students engaged. I should have did popsicle sticks here, because I want to make sure somebody's speaking during the lesson. Students shouldn't go, past their age, like 10 minutes, 10 years old, 10 minutes past their age, sitting and not saying. Maybe I could have did a call and response, but just thinking of different ways I can engage teachers so they can do it in their classrooms.
Reflective is a simple word, but I think it's a powerful activity, a powerful action. Do you have some suggestions on how to prompt one's reflective thinking?
A lot of modeling. When we check in with teachers, we follow up. We say, how do you think this went? What were some great spots in the, we start with 3 stars and a wish. What are some things we could have done better? But really being able to examine our lesson after we taught it and kind of identify some areas of growth. We're all looking to get at better. We all want to try new things. And I think we are, like coaches, instructional coaches, are the cheerleader for teachers in that.
Staying with reflective, I attended a event yesterday that was designed especially to cause us to reflect. And I wonder whether you have some specific questions or criteria that a person could use to focus his or her reflection.
So I definitely have a couple of downloads. I could definitely add it to our YouTube channel and we can put it there. But we call that sentence stems. What are some sentence stems that we provide for our teachers to reflect? So in one pilot study, we were able to do reflections based on culturally responsive pedagogy in the classroom. Like, do you see the teacher walking around? Did the teacher prompt the student by kind of rubbing on the back or tapping them saying, hey, you're number 2 next? Like, what are teachers doing to create supports in the classroom? But not only are they looking at themselves and reflecting on these sentence stems, but they're also looking at other teachers. So there was a pilot that went really well where teachers were able to reflect on their own teaching practice and reflect on others that were doing similar lessons with some of the practices that we taught them in the PD.
There's a term, and I actually think the term is misleading, the non-example. I say it's still an example, not the non-example. It's the example of what you do not want to do or you do not want to see. Could you elaborate upon how a non-example would fit with reflective thinking?
Wow, that was good, David. Let me think. A non-example.
Right.
I can't.
I
Oh my
think that's the
God.
wrong word. It's an example of something you don't want to do.
Right. So, okay. But that's funny because a lot of that terminology has been kind of removed from a lot of things we do now. Because it used to be provide an example, now give a non-example. Now I think sometimes when we teach non-examples, it kind of confuses students. So we think about what are the misconceptions that students will have or teachers will have on their journey, and then we kind of write those down, and then we kind of troubleshoot based on that. But as a non-example, I cannot think on the fly of a non-example.
Well, troubleshoot, see, that's the word, because
Yeah.
it'll be something that you would not want to do, and you should troubleshoot to see how you could correct it or do it better the next time, let's say.
Exactly.
Yeah. The non-example.
Funny.
Yeah, it's an example of what you don't want to do as opposed to a non-example. It is an example, just not what you want to do. Okay. All right. Our next bullet. Would you like to go there or somewhere else?
Sure, we can go there. Where are we at? Personal learning
Incorporate personalized learning paths. Are we talking now about students, or are we talking about teachers in their own personal development?
Right? I think it could be both. And I always figure, like, all of our conversations, I'm like, David, we could do both and. But really thinking about, I remember, like, I want to say 10 years ago, doing research on this school of one where everybody had a device, and everybody's device that had a schedule or an agenda. And based on either the mood of the student or the thoughts of the student, the agenda can morph or change, whether it be small group first or individualized learning first. And so that has kind of come into fruition for multiple schools where we can create agendas, we can create asynchronous learning and do it more efficiently and effectively, and as well as the teachers. So one of the things I kind of want us to do is thinking about, for our new teachers, what path do we know we all have to go on to be successful at a school? Now, that could be something as simple as onboarding. What's the path for onboarding? Because what we're seeing now in some schools is we're onboarding teachers in November, right? And so what does that even look like for a teacher that comes in the middle? And so when we're thinking about asynchronous learning, it could be just as powerful for students as it can be for our teachers.
Asynchronous. I'm going to ask you a question about asynchronous learning, but just for the audience and just for establishing a background, would you describe or define what asynchronous learning is?
Right. So synchronous learning is when we do it at the same time, right? I'm teaching, you're online, we're online at the same time. Asynchronous learning is when maybe I upload a module or a mini video, and then you watch it at your own time, and then you reflect. So synchronous learning can be helpful when you want to make discussion, you want to mark student learning, you want to brainstorm, you want to have students collaborate. That is great for synchronous learning. But asynchronous learning is powerful when you have rich text that you want somebody to really think about, write about, and conceptualize before they get back online to kind of talk about. And so really thinking about what are some best strategies for the type of practices that you want to do online.
Well, Cassandra, it just so happens that you elaborated on a thing that I wanted to discuss further, and that is, can asynchronous learning be as effective as synchronous learning? And my issue here is delayed feedback. How does the person know that he or she is on the right path and learning the topic to the depth that you would require or expect.
Right. So I think it could be both. And so not only is it asynchronous learning, but there has to be some synchronous pieces in the module happening. So you can kind of interview the student to kind of see if they're on the right path. Did they get what they want to get from the module that you prescribed? What was the assessment like? Let's discuss some of the pieces. But I think the power in online learning is that we, as I want to say professors, educators, are kind of coming to grips to is the turnaround time is a little different. Right. With online learning, the turnaround time is a little quicker than I meet every week and we see face to face. You get your paper back next week when I see you. Right. And so thinking about that, it's a little different, but it's just a different push for professors to get it in.
Okay, CW, you saw me reaching over here. I have a acronym that I got from you. And I'm going to give it right back to you regarding asynchronous learning. And we know that for online learning to be effective, we want to implement SAMR, SAMR, substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. What you described just now sounded like substitution. All you described was, I'm going to do the same thing online that I would have done in the classroom, rather than expanding upon the benefits that technology might introduce. So right. how do we expand upon it? How do we redefine the use of online learning so that it is beyond simple substitution?
I think that is what I explain is what people know. But redefinition is now I'm working with students who are global on a wiki document, like on a Google document, and we're all working in tandem during our time on this project during the time that we can in the world. So when we talk about redefinition, we really talk about how do we utilize tools that will help you work on a project, maybe at the same time or at different times. And I want to say a wiki or a Google document would be one of those ideas. Now, when we're thinking about like substitution, we're thinking about, okay, the teacher, prescribes a vocabulary document. The student looks at it, she downloads it and prints it out, and she writes on the vocabulary document. She takes a picture of it and then she uploads it on a canvas, and then the teacher is looking at it, right? And so she's lacking the skills of understanding. I think at that point, the teacher's lacking the skills of understanding that if the student can do it online, teachers can grade it online, there's no need for a printout, upload, and for a teacher to actually look at it. Now we have tools like AI that can automatically grade, that can scan it, that, and so you don't have to do the whole substitution, which we knew.
CW, you describe substitution. You describe substitution. Or maybe the step you took beyond substitution was to incorporate AI.
Yes, but like I said, redefinition is how do we really think about online tools, but right. Instead of using the teacher printout and the uploading, right. It's the the document, the Google document that we can work at any time and utilize the tool to work on a project together.
Well, I would argue that it goes beyond that. And I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I've done some research. I've got a list of things. I'm still trying to figure it out myself, because I think it goes beyond, redefinition goes beyond what we can actually conceive.
Oh, yes.
Because most of what we think about regarding online learning is using it the same way we would have taught a classroom in the classroom. So let's not get stuck here. And I'm watching the clock too. We have around 5 minutes remaining. So of the bullets we have, empower teacher, leaders, and coaches, integrate technology and AI effectively. I guess that's what we're talking about. Focus on teacher retention through engagement and well-being. Of those remaining bullets, where would you like to go?
I don't know. Maybe we can talk about empowering teachers, or, just all these last three can really be combined. Like, peer learning needs to be continuous, mentorship, constant development and growth. That's crucial. And even thinking about our opportunities to retain our teachers all stem from that human connection. What are the human connections that we are doing to make sure that our teachers are supported, they're safe, and they get the ongoing professional development that they need to stay in the classroom?
CW, you just opened another can of worms. Okay, you said personal connection, or we know relationship is important.
Yes,
How do you build relationship? And those that you just tied together 3 different topics,
I
which
did.
would include integrate technology and AI effectively. How do you achieve personal connection? How do you develop a relationship? Well, a personal relationship. If it's asynchronous, if it's AI, how do you cross that barrier?
So I always say it could be like drip lines or modules. So, for example, if we can press play when a teacher comes here, like Professor Johnson comes here, I press play, automatically one day he gets here. He's introduced to his mentor teacher. And the mentor teacher is getting paid, he's getting paid to show up and be there. Right? 2 weeks in, he meets with the AP. The AP connects with them. 3 weeks, he dives more into the curriculum. So he's meeting with the instructional coach, right? So thinking of how do we have these touch points using drip campaigns or using an automated system to where everybody gets the same thing with onboarding and everybody gets the support they need. So not only are they connecting with different people in the building during different times, but they're also like meeting people, and they also have mentorships in place, and they also have met the coach, and everybody's kind of getting paid to be there. So people show up on time, they have their expectation, there's notes taking, and just thinking about how do we treat school like that? How do we treat onboarding like that? And how do we treat teacher self-care like that? Maybe 4 weeks in, the teacher gets a massage, right? A spa massage comes in and say, hey, congratulations, you made it for a week. We want to celebrate you being here, right? So thinking of how do we have these tools in place to where when they're 4 weeks in, it's 4 weeks in for everybody and everybody receives the same support and help.
It sounds like you just described hybrid learning.
Right?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
It's all intertwined, right?
Right.
But it's not even a hybrid learning. It's just like we want to make sure that you know the people that you're working with. You have time to spend with your community. And the principal has to be very intentional about making sure everybody's included.
Mm-hmm. And are we talking about teachers and students, or are we talking about both?
So at this point, it would be great if we were doing it for teachers. Because they are, teachers are, it'd be nice if they got more money. Let me just say that out loud. They need raises. Our teachers need raises. But if they were hyper connected and they were able to bond with their community and they had time to do that and people were paid to kind of be there, I think it would be that much more, important.
Wow. We have like a minute remaining. So if we were to wrap this up into one
Right.
nice package, what would the takeaway be?
Well, just continue being an advocate and supporting your teachers. These are trying times. Policy is a little different. Things are changing, and like the political climate is changing as well, but that's another topic. But I think teachers need an advocate. So if you can support your teachers with professional development, individualized learning, have that human connection, and definitely call David or I if you need any help with your school.
All right, so you just touched on another thing. What is the call to action? What do you want people to do with the information you've provided?
Well, reach out, and David and I can definitely help you on your journey. If you're looking to transform your school or you're looking to implement some of these strategies, that's what we do best.
And again, we didn't cover every topic.
No,
There's
we
so much
didn't.
here. You have a fountain of knowledge. So if people want to know more, how do they contact you?
You can go to educationalinnovation360.com. You can connect with David or I on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Like, we are on every social platform that you can imagine. Definitely DM us and get a hold of us, and we will definitely work with you.
Well, thank you for being our guest, CW. Cassandra Williams is the founder and CEO of Educational Innovation 360 Degrees, a pioneering company dedicated to transforming education from K-12 through higher education. And CW, Cassandra, is the brains behind our broadcast here. And so I would be remiss if I did not give her that shout out and that credit.
Thanks.
So thank you for being our guest. And to our audience, thank you for being with us this afternoon. And we look forward to the next time we can be together.
Definitely. Thank you so much, David.